I'm Lieutenant Brandon Wright with the Hayes Police Department, and this morning I'd like to talk to everybody about back-to-school safety. Summer vacation is drawing to an end, and the school's starting back into session this week. There's going to be children walking, biking, taking the bus to school, as well as kids getting in and out of their cars near schools, and it can be pretty chaotic this time of year until everybody figures out their schedules and where they're going. It's extremely important that all motorists exercise extra caution around school zones and school buses, residential areas where children are walking in the morning and after school, and give yourself extra time to get where you need to go, especially if you're one of those parents or people who are shuttling those kids around. I'm going to touch on school zones. Hayes Police Department enforces speeding school zones. Very regularly, we have school officers assigned every morning and every afternoon to school zones. Speeding in school zones, fines are doubled. A typical speeding citation in a school zone starts at $160 and goes up from there depending upon your speed. We just have to be extra vigilant, slow down, and make sure we're watching for those children. We all know they can be very unpredictable and jump out in the street when you're not expecting it. So when you're driving around those areas, watch your speed, put the phones down, and just be careful. School buses, if you see a school bus in a school zone or even out of it, you got to be vigilant, watching for kids there too. If a school bus has its red flashing lights in operation, you may not pass it. It's against the law to pass a school bus with the lights flashing. And that one of the misconceptions on that, sometimes when people are on the other side of the street as a school bus and are approaching it, they don't think that those lights, or if the stop sign is out, that applies to them, but it does. Anytime those lights are flashing, you have to stop and be watching for kids. Again, they can jump out from that school bus and in an instant be out in the street. Violating that ordinance is $200 with the fine and court costs included. I'd like to talk a minute about drop-offs and pickups. If you are one of those parents that are shuttling kids to school, be sure they have the proper safety seats for the young ones, and everybody needs to buckle up. An under 14 year of age seatbelt ticket for a child is $160. So make sure they're buckled up, and you are too. Around those schools, when you're dropping kids off or picking them up, don't double park or park in no parking zones, and avoid stopping in the street to let children get out. Especially dangerous if you're dropping them out on the other side of the street from the school and they've got to get out and cross a lane of traffic in order to get to the sidewalk safely. It's much better to either wait until the traffic clears to where you can get into the drop-off area at the school, or drop them off curbside near a sidewalk in the area and let them take the crosswalk across the street, which they are usually manned with crossing guards. So also, if you have your children walking or biking to school, go over the route with them ahead of time. Make sure they're familiar with where they're supposed to go. Teach them about looking both ways before crossing the street. Teach them to be watching traffic and watching traffic signs and signals. Make sure they understand how that works. And driveway accesses and alleys, especially those kids who are riding bikes. We've all seen those kids on the sidewalks, flying down the sidewalk, blowing through alleys and crossing streets, and that's very, very dangerous. So if you have a child that's walking or riding to school, have them watching cars backing out of driveways, watch alleys, and make sure they're stopping before they cross streets. If they're riding bikes, making sure they're wearing a helmet. It's also with those children who are walking or riding to school, you need to talk to them about stranger danger. You need to not talk to strangers or accept rides from anyone, whether they know them or not, without your permission. And report any strange person who approaches them or offers a ride or candy or anything like that to a teacher as soon as possible, or if they're going home, to the first adult they can get a hold of. If possible, they should try to walk or ride to school with friends, with safety in numbers. And have a plan for after school. So when the kids come home, that they're checking in with somebody, so you know they're safe and know where they're at, and not just running from house to house when they get home. We all have very busy lives, and we often have a lot of things on our plate. So when we're trying to get our kids to school, or even if we don't have children and we're trying to get to school, we tend to multitask. It's important, especially this time of year when it's so chaotic, like I was talking about, to pay attention to your driving, especially around school buses and school zones. Tragedy can occur in an instant. So have a plan, educate your kids, and make sure you give yourself plenty of time in the mornings or in the afternoons. But if something falls through and you're running late, you still have to avoid the rush. It's not worth it to make a mistake that could have a tragic consequence.